Hello, hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be looking at prepping for HRCYED 1.0. You might be like, hey, we're in the middle of 2.0, and yes, that is correct. But unfortunately or fortunately, I don't like leaving things undone, and since I didn't know about HRCYED 1.0 when it came out, now that I'm just about done with 2.0, I really have been thinking about wanting to go back and do 1.0. And so I went back, I watched the video from Cordy to explaining all about 1.0, which I will link, and I was like, you know what? That seems doable. I do have a ton of things coming up in the new year. I've got like 6 challenges. Basically, all the challenges that I regularly do are resetting for the most part in January. But they're all 12-month challenges. So, well, I think one of them will have 6 months left, other than HRCYED, obviously. I have one other one that I don't really chat about all that much. It's just a story graph one where it's reading through like classics and things that are throughout the course of this academic school year. So I've got several more months left on that one. But that isn't necessarily a challenge. It's just purposefully going back and reading things I didn't really get to read or had never been assigned and I thought would be useful in just becoming more well-read generally. So yeah. Anyways, so I decided, you know what? Let's see how difficult it will be to do HRCYED 1.0. See if we can fit it in. How much of the prompts there can I potentially duplicate, things that I'm going to be reading elsewhere or that are already on my list, etc. And the answers shouldn't be too bad, to be completely honest. Now, will it be difficult? Yes, because there are a lot of challenges, but it seems to be less books, like overall, than HRCYED 2.0. So shouldn't be any problem to get all of it done before HRCYED 3.0 starts. Yay, so I'm giving myself like 6-ish months to finish it. Now, if, of course, I run past it and I'm still working on it when HRCYED 3.0 comes around, that's fine. My rule generally, when I'm doing challenges that are either mini challenges in addition to a main challenge, or if I am doing multiple iterations of a challenge at the same time because I'm trying to get caught up, as it were, is that I don't use the same book for 2 prompts within a family of a challenge. So if I use something for HRCYED 1.0, I couldn't use it for 2.0 or 3.0, if that makes sense. At least not for the same read. If there was a possibility of being allowed to do rereads and I really loved a book and I wanted to reread it for some reason and it was allowed, then I could use it later if I reread it. But for now, it's not really a thing because rereads don't count for HRCYED. Anywho's, so let's get started. All right, so a lot of these are ones that I'm like, you know what, they could potentially change depending on how the year goes. If I get another 500 pages in one day book before I get to White Witch Black Curse, it's not going to make me sad. I will still probably read this book, but it doesn't have to be this particular one. But I wanted something to go here. So I guess I should probably talk about how I figured out what to go on places. I started out with books that I already either have on my sort of requireds list for other challenges or are on my list for books that I have on hold from the library or I'm waiting on from the library, because I have a number of different library cards that I pay for and ones for the area I live in as well. So I have probably at any given time 20 or 30 books I'm waiting on for places from the library. Some of these are still half a year away, so I know that I'm not going to get to them anytime this year, but for 2026 should be able to get them. So I may mention them if one of them pops up here, because I know there were like 2 or 3 that are in here that are specifically that exact situation where I really wanted to read them this year, but it was not going to happen because I found it in the last couple months and it was the better part of a year before it'd be available from any of the libraries that I have memberships with. I guess technically library cards, but a library card that you pay for is kind of like a membership. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so right now, 500 pages in one day. I'm looking at White Witch Black Curse, but I'm not going to hold myself to it. Blurbs. So this one's really hard to research. I don't know why it is so difficult to research. Probably because I don't actually go pick up the physical book and like look at it. But I found this one very difficult to do. This one I probably spent the most time on, trying to find not just the blurbs on the back and figuring out if I wanted to read anything from the authors, but just generally finding one that had 3 blurbs. It was a whole thing. So if there are better ones out there, let me know. But I ended up realizing that most of the time, if I went to the Amazon listing for it, it would have all the blurbs in the description or in the like additional information. So V.E. Schwab, or Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, had like 5 or 6, maybe it was only 5, 4 or 5. I'm pretty sure there were at least 5 though, blurbs, and I believe it was from multiple different editions, but I could not sort out what they were because I couldn't find the backs of the books. So I hope that this is acceptable. But what I ended up choosing was blurbs by Naomi Novik, Jody, I think it's Picoult, and Rebecca Roanhorse. My husband has been wanting me to read Uprooted for the better part of 6 months. He absolutely loved this book, and he was talking all about it when he first read it, but he wouldn't tell me more than just like the bare minimum because he's like, no, I don't want to ruin anything. You're definitely going to read it because I know that you're going to go read it. I'm like, okay, but I want to hear about this book. He's like, no, you got to go read it. So I need to read this book so we can finally chat about it. And then the By Any Other Name is on my list of books that I was supposed to read this year, but because I didn't realize that one of the sort of book clubs that I'm in had multiple sub-book groups until halfway through the year, right around the time that I started HRCYED and started recording generally on YouTube again. And so I never got around to By Any Other Name. There's probably, I don't know, 30 or 40% of the books that were from those subgroups that I did not get to this year that I plan on trying to fit in as whenever I can in 2025, just as they're available, because some of them are still not available from the library. That's why I haven't read them. And this is one of them. I believe it's historical fiction. And since I need to read it anyway, or at least I'm choosing to read it anyway, I went ahead and found, okay, pop that on. And then Rebecca Roanhorse, I read Trail of Lightning this year, and I gave it 5 stars. It's one of my 5-star books for the year. And absolutely, obviously, because it's 5-star, loved it. So I've decided I'm going to try to read not only the sequel to Trail of Lightning, but at least one other series, like introduce myself into more of her writing to see if it was like a one-off. I absolutely love this series, or if I just love her books in general. So I chose Black Sun, which is book 1 in this particular series, and it's, as you can see on the picture there, it was a Hugo Award winner. So I am hopeful that that means this was a fantastic one to choose. But anyway, that is where we're going there. Garage sale books. This one was pretty basic, just look to see what's available at garage sale near me. And so we're going to be reading The Elite, Wildfire, and Wretched. Wretched? I guess it's Wretched. So Wretched is another one in a series that my husband has been reading. And I have another book in the series on here, I'm pretty sure. If not, there's another one definitely on my list of books I should be reading in next year, just because we wanted to chat about some of the books that he's reading. I read a whole lot more just because he mostly reads in the car, and I tend to read when I'm doing in the car, or when I'm doing chores, or when I'm out and about, and he also reads on like 1x speed, and I read at a faster speed than that. So therefore, audiobook read, if that makes sense. It's not, I don't, listen, read, listen. At a bit of a higher speed, so therefore I get through more books generally. So I have not gotten around to reading this series. I read the first one. I was like, it's okay. It's not my fave. It's not my favorite dark romance, and it's also not my favorite subgenre of romance in general. So I'm more paranormal romance fave when it comes to romance genre. So I never really got around to it, but I decided to go ahead and pop it in here because I found it, and it was in a series that he's working his way through. It was available at the library, essentially, and he was like, "Oh, you've been talking about dark romances," and then they advertised this one to me. They said it was potentially something I would enjoy, and I'm like, "Okay, let's see if you like it, babe." He's finishing the series, so I think so. Anywho's, moving on to the next one. AuthorTuber books. So I already did an AuthorTuber books section in HRCYED 2.0. So a lot of these authors you will see from when I did it for 2.0. John Green, I read 2 of his books last year. And this is one that I had asked from the library and I still haven't gotten. So I figured it'll come in sometime next year. Probably early part of next year. And I will read that one. Truth of the Divine. I just read the first one of this book series and adored it. It's Axiom. I will be talking about it. I believe I read it in November, so I will be talking about it in my November review. I loved it. So I decided to put the second one on because I definitely will be reading it. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit it into my December reading, even though I really want to. I just have so much to get through in December. I did not set myself up well for success when it came to finishing things out for the year. But I want to read the rest of this series. It's really interesting. So I'm going to put that on there. I'm going sort of all over the place. I mentioned Dangerous Assassin by Elizabeth Wheatley when I read that one that I really, really liked it. So I'm going to read the second one. And then The Serpent and the Siren, Piper CJ. I read 2 of her books. Well, no, I read more of her books than that because she also has the children's series that I read in 2025 as well. I've read several of her books. I usually put them at like the 3, but like really close to a 4-star rating. I love the premise of these books, but I don't always love some of the character development things that are going on, and the writing isn't always my favorite, but the premise is really great. So I really keep going back in. I like the system, how it's like all these different pantheons and how they interact with each other, and I just sort of want to know where the story goes. So I decided I'll keep reading, despite what I already said about it being a 3-star for me, not being my absolute favorite series, but its storyline has me hooked to want to come back. And then Burning Brightly, Alexa Dawn. Is it Dawn or Dawn? I'm not sure, but I have not read any of her books, and this one sounds interesting. So I decided to put this on my list. Next up, 4-book series. This one I may swap out. I'm not sure, but I keep seeing 1,000,001 different, like, vampire... What is the name of the series? Oh my goodness gracious. It's the other one where this is the spin-off of that series. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm sure all of you guys who have read all of the books by Carolyn Peckham and Suzanne Valenti are going to be yelling at me through your screens right now. But I decided this is the shorter spin-off series from what I hear, and I could sort of get a sampling, a little bit more introduction to the world. I have read the first one in the main series, but it wasn't my absolute fave. It was okay. I can sort of see where it's going to go, and I'm not sure how I feel specifically about like the bully romance side of things, but I do like the paranormal aspects and the Zodiac part. That's what it is, Zodiac Academy. My brain just took a minute to get there. Anyway, so I'll probably at some point go back and keep reading that series. It just hasn't been my #1 priority, but I needed a 4-book series that I hadn't started yet at all, it sounded like from listening to this, and I don't know a ton of 4-book series that are already on my list of maybe get around to it. I have a spreadsheet of things that as stuff comes up, I'll pop it on the spreadsheet. I'm like, ooh, that sounds really interesting. I really want to read it. put it on the haven't started yet part of there. And this was the only one that was 4 to 5 books, and they hadn't started it at all. Most of them were trilogies and duologies, or really, really long, like 50-something book series. And I didn't want to add that many additional books to a challenge I was doing in addition to all the other stuff that I had going on. So I chose this one. But if I find another series as I'm going through that just really hooks me, that is 4 books, I may swap it out and do this at another time. But for now, let me know if you've read this series and think it's amazing, or if you're like, please switch it out, it's horrible. Let me know, because I haven't read anything about it, like, at all. I just know that it is by the 2, and it's supposed to be in the same universe, I believe. I saw like a reading list, and this was on the reading list. But anyways, enough about that. Moving on. Small booktubers. So this one wasn't that it is by small booktubers, from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, those of you who have done 1.0 already. But it sounded like it was actually like recommended by small booktubers. So I found 2 small booktubers, and I will see if I can put the links to their channels in the blurb to watch and sort of see some suggestions. And so the ones that were suggested were Summer in the City by Alex Astor, Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan, which is already on my list for needing to be done for one of the subgenre book clubs that I was behind on. Shield of Sparrows, which is on my want TBR. Legendborn, also on my want to read TBR. Not just like need to read, but like just general TBR. This is something that I think would be fun. And then Golden Sun is obviously on my list because it's the next one in the Red Rising trilogy, which I literally just talked about like, I don't know, a week ago on the channel, of wanting to reread Red Rising, because I feel like there's a little bit of disconnect at one point, and I may have missed something while reading, and want to like get ready to read this one again. So at some point I wanted to read Golden Sun anyway, and it was there, so added it on. Other countries. So as you'll see, a lot of Agatha Christie on here. That's on purpose. I am not working towards any particular timeline of it, but 52 Book Club has an Agatha Christie challenge out there, and so I've been sort of fitting Agatha Christie books into my normal reading so that, eventually I will finish that in the normal scheme of things. Right, anyways, so I chose 3 Agatha Christie's. Mystery of the Blue Train should take place in France. And then the other 2 are obvious from their covers. Murder in Mesopotamia and Appointment with Death, which I guess that one's not so obvious. I believe it is Egypt. So 3 Agatha Christie novels, and they will sort of do a 2-for-1. And then Ball Lightning is another book that sort of caught my attention. I read The 3-Body Problem like less than 2 months ago, and I enjoyed it, but I only gave it a 3-star because it was just really, really sort of intense, and I thought that I would have potentially liked an abridged version a little bit more, at least as an audiobook. And this one seems to be a bit shorter, so I'm hoping that all of the things that I liked about 3-Body Problem and the shorter length will mean that it's a fabulous for me book. So I went ahead and added that one on there, and that one takes place in China, based on the internet when I was looking. And then I chose the next of the One Piece, because I am working through that. They're in my basement, well, in our basement. My husband has like 40 or so of them. He has a lot of them, so I've been slowly working my way through them. We watched the live action together, the first season. We have not had time to watch all of the animated because we're working our way through Naruto Shippuden at the moment. We were going through Naruto, and now we're at Shippuden. Before that, what were we reading? What were we doing before that? That's It's been over a year and a half, so pardon. But anyway, we try to have like a couple of books that we read ish together, like one per quarter, maybe a couple a year, depending on what's going on in our lives. And then we try to also watch some anime together. Just sort of gives us something to do and to chat about in the evenings. So that's one of the ones we're doing. Anyway, back around. So I needed to read the next one anyway. Well, need is a big word. I am choosing to read through all the One Piece because they're fun, they're interesting. And so since I'm going to do that anyway, I went ahead and popped it on here. All right, this page, I do not know this is what's going to actually happen. Several of them are actually already on my list. Inheritance Game, Sweet Obsession, Night and Its Moon, and the Obelisk Gate. Night and Its Moon was not a like right away book, but it's going to be coming available in the next few months from my library, and it sounded interesting and it fit some prompts this last year. I just didn't get it here in time, and I'd already read a sapphic love story elsewhere that fit some prompts, so I didn't have to worry about it. And I was like, okay, well, it's not going to be here till next year, not a problem. And then this came out, and I was like, hey, perfect, it'll fit here. But the other three were not on my list at all. I didn't know anything about them, but sorry about that. I was like, you know what? I've already got 4 that'll fit here. Let me go and pop those in, and then maybe I'll go look and see if anything are interesting about for the other ones. So I went ahead and chose Bury Your Bones in Midnight Soil because I heard really good reviews about this one for questioning. And then I've not heard anything at all about Pantomime, but there is supposedly an intersex main character working at a circus that's got some dark secrets based on the blurb. And then Vicious is another V.E. Schwab book, and I figure if I really like the first one, then maybe I'll like the other one, and the premise sounded interesting, so I decided, let's give it a go. Now, if I don't like one or the other of them, since I haven't, to my knowledge, read any V.E. Schwab yet, then I'll swap the other one out for something else, because it shouldn't be too difficult to find something else that will fit just in the normal way that I read generally. So yeah, if you have suggestions, do let me know. Lowest rated books. So these are the lowest rated books that are on my TBR. To be fair, I used my Goodreads TBR, which I don't actively use as much anymore, but my sort of more prominent ways, there's not really a way to look at them. So these are all yes on my list. And one of them is a very, very, very short nonfiction book called Stop Micromanaging that I know very little about, but I added it when I started sort of working as I was a remote worker already, but then I had a team that was working under me, and so it's been on there for a while, and so I was like, you know what, I should read it. Well, it's gonna fit into this challenge anyway. I was back and forth about whether it counted as a book or not, because it's literally like, I don't know, under 100 pages. So if you don't think it counts, let me know and I'll switch it out to the next one on the list. But popped it on here because it technically is on the list. So I chose the last one by Rachel. I don't know if you can say chose, because it's just they are what they are. But Rachel Helza Hall, The Empress by Kristen Cast. Stop Micromanaging one. And then Katie McAllister's Esteemed, which sounds like it will be really interesting. I don't remember adding it to my TBR, but I really do. Well, I have enjoyed several of Katie McAllister's books in the past, specifically like her Dragon series. I know I read at least one of them this year, and I figured, you know what? I must have been adding a whole bunch of different things on there at one point that were from her when I was reading back in the day. Back in the day being several years ago. But I never got around to reading it, so interesting. And then Book Boyfriend, which I also don't remember putting on my list, so this will be interesting. So these are probably some books that I added to my TBR a while ago, or maybe while scrolling TikTok, or not TikTok, I don't TikTok, but Instagram, that were probably cross-posted to TikTok. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Put it on my TBR. And then 3 in the morning, and never remembered again. It's like, I guess a better version of Amazon shopping at 3 in the morning. Or while inebriated. Okay, so direct from indie author. I did not put something here because I don't know what I'm going to purchase yet, and this is only 1 book, so I will have to figure that out in the course of the year. Same thing from local author, from bookstore. I don't actually know of any local bookstores near me, and I have been trying not to make any purchases, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do that for both of these last 2 prompts. I think I'm going to have to actually go and make a purchase. So we will see how that goes, and it'll be the first time in about a year and some months. I think when was the last time I bought a book? It was over a year ago, but less than 2.5 years ago, because I bought several books 2.5 years ago, but then I also bought a couple more books once I moved into, so I mean, I feel like it's probably been somewhere between 12 and 18 months since I bought a book last. I've mostly been borrowing them, getting them from the library, or I have a few books that I got here, or I got them on like Stuff Your Kindle days and things like that. So this will be the first time I actually purchased something in a while. And then spell your name. I did not want to put my full government name onto the internet. So instead, I decided to go with my username, which is normally Songbird Reads, but then my name is Heather, so you get Songbird Heather. So that way you get some more. Plus my name is rather long generally, so if you think like first, middle, and last, I figured giving myself a few more letters is probably fair. I could put Songbird Read Heather, I suppose. If you want me to, I can add 4 more. But I went with Songbird Heather, which is also a name I use pretty regularly when it comes to like gaming and things. So I do actually use this. And these are not ones that I feel like I'm tied to, like I have to. These are all ones that are on my TBR. Most of them are going to be either available sometime next year or are currently on suspended because I knew I was going to get to that, was not going to get them to them in November with all the traveling I'm doing, and I'm not going to get to them in December because I'm trying to get everything finished up for the year. For example, One Dark Window and Small Magics, and I think The Runaway Bride as well are all in that. They're on suspended hold for Libby at the moment while I finish up the year and all the things I need to do to finish that up without failing a challenge, because I don't want to do that. But anyway, so I chose Small Magic, One Dark Window, Nightbane, Glent, Book Lovers, which the first 4, I was super excited to get those ones knocked out. Well, Nightbane, I don't know. I put that one down because I was a little annoyed with the end of the first book. I was like, no! You know how I love Fated Mates. Anyway. They twisted that a little bit. And then Book Lovers is the first one I was like, I don't remember putting this on there. I was probably for a prompt and then I found something else to read it, but it's coming available soon, so I was like, it's a B. That'll work perfect. It must have sounded interesting. It's romance. Contemporary romance is not my favorite, but I do enjoy them occasionally. So I'll read. Sorry, the dog is right here, being adorable. I will read that one. And then Iron Widow has been on my list of ones that I should read for 18 months. I just haven't gotten to it. So I'll be able to do it here. And then I thought, well, maybe I can put it for like somewhere else too. I'm like, no, because I can't use it anywhere else because it's duplicating. And I use like there's one that I missed going through, and that was the alphabet, where all the letters, but I'm also doing an alphabet soup elsewhere, so it'll do double duty. But I could potentially use this one for alphabet soup author and use Zhao for the last name for my Z. So try to do double duty there. And then the roommate is my R, Dark Matter for D. This one's also been on my list of wanting to read for over a year. I just haven't gotten to it. How to Fall in Love with a Demon is my beginning of my name. Encyclopedia, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Ask for Andrea, which is a recommendation from a friend. Tourist Season, which I have really enjoyed Bryn Weaver's books so far. So I was like, well, we're going to read the next one. And then How to Read a Book. No idea. There is a prompt in another challenge that I'm doing, which I haven't really gotten a lot into what I'm doing, how I'm going to fill those out, because there's so many prompts in general that starting the beginning of the year, maybe I'll do that at Christmas, as work on some of those, but there's a prompt that says like how to, and I think that this may work there, so maybe I'll do that. And then Evangelicals, nonfiction. Then the last one is The Runaway Bride. I don't know a lot about a couple of these books. Runaway Bride is one of the ones that's on my challenge that I need to finish for 2025 that I'm not going to because I didn't know about the subgenre book clubs. Anyways, it's on my list. It was not available. I put this one, I actually did know about it in time, but I haven't gotten it from the library. And it's like a month and a half now past when I was supposed to hopefully get it, and did not. I guess I misread when the timeline was going to be, but it's the only library card that I have that has that one. So I'm just, when I'll get it, I'll get it, and I'll read it. Okay, Spiffbo. This one was a little more difficult because none of the books were on my list at all. So I also spent a lot of time on this one, and I hope that I did it right. So when I went to the original link on there, it was, I don't know if you guys have done this, but I found it really difficult to sort of navigate to the lists of nominees and finalists. But then as I like dug, I found another link out there that was all of the finalists, but then all of the ones that weren't finalists were sort of faded out under each of the readers' names. You could sort of see these are all the ones that particular reader read, and these are the ones that they moved into the finalist categories, and all of the other ones are still there, but they're like faded. So I found those ones here, and then I had to go and see what would be available from my library, for both Hoopla and Libby and Kindle Unlimited. Where else did I look? I think that's the main places that I looked. And I was able to find these 5. There were a couple others that were potentially out there. They just didn't really grab my attention for things that I thought I personally would really enjoy. So I was holding out for some more ones that were in that sort of supernatural-y slash that or fun. So like Cursed Cocktails just sounds fun. We'll see how it is just based on the like blurb. I was like, that sounds fun. Anyways, yeah, that's why I chose these ones. Let me know if you read any of them, because I have not read any of those authors before. And if some of them are like amazing, or you're like, ooh, I read this one, I think that it was an amazing choice, then maybe I can read that one instead, or read both, because, you know, I read a lot of books. So, webcomic. This is another one that I found a little bit difficult, because I like a good webcomic, but I haven't really been in my webcomic time, like in my era, as they would say, for probably like a year and a half, maybe a year. I go in and out, depending how the mood does me. So I have a whole list of potential options, and I just picked the one that is most likely to be chosen, but some of the ones that were on my list, in case you've heard of any of these, and you're like, that's the one, read that one. Or if you have another option that you did read or you think fits this prompt, it's completed webcomic, let me know. I may have already read it, which means I couldn't use it. But, yeah. So, Love and Leashes, Freaking Romance, Wolfman of Wolvershire, The Dragon King's Bride, Cursed Princess Club, which I can't actually use that one, because I have read, like, a couple of seasons of that. But is it, like, I was like, could I just use a season? I don't think so. I think I have to read the entire thing. So I couldn't use that one, but it's good. So if you haven't read it, go read it. Sixth Sense Kiss, Cheese in the Trap, Siren's Lament, Always Human, Rice Boy, Muted, and Misfile, which I couldn't find on Webtoon, but I did find a, they said that there was a remake of it and out there that I found a discussion board about it. So hopefully if that one ends up being the one that I pick, then I will be able to find it. Otherwise, I will pick another one. But that was one that was highly recommended on boards when I went out there looking, just typing in completed webcomics that are amazing, completed webcomics that are 5 stars, things like that. So let me know if any of those you thought were absolutely phenomenal and I should definitely read them, or some of them you're like, oh, tried that one, didn't work for me. Or if you have suggestions because you've already done this, or you're reading webcomics in general on the regular and you're like, this is one of my favorite ever, it is completed, use it. Because I know myself, the likelihood is that I will probably go down the rabbit hole of rejoining reading webcomics on the reg for at least 2026, or at least for a while in 2026. I tend to go through, like I said, phases. Okay, new releases. So this one I did a little bit different because I'm already doing a new release for every month, well, until June, right? I was like, how will that work? So if I'm trying to do 2 new releases, trying to get just 1 new release a month just from the library and everywhere else has been difficult enough. So what I ended up doing is deciding to do this one based on if I had done it in that actual time frame. So I did July 24, August 24, September, blah, 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 all the way to June of 25. And I picked one of each. I may swap them out if I find something better, if I find something more interesting. But I don't know that there is going to be a lot of change, to be completely honest, because some of them are, I'll just walk through them. So Phantasma, I need to read. I keep saying I'm going to read it, but I keep not getting it from the library in time, or something comes up, and anywho's, need to read that one. Then Wisteria, I want to actually get that series done. I've only read the first one, and I planned on reading Holly, but I didn't get through the rest of the series in time to read Holly as a new release earlier this year. So I went ahead and put Wisteria on there. So it's another opportunity for me to read through and finish that series up because I do want to do that. On Wings of Blood has been on my TBR for at least a couple of months now. I want to say like 3 or 4 months. I just haven't had time. Hexed, it's another one of the same series as Wretched or Wretched, which however you say that. I already mentioned that before. North is the Night, the Memory Collectors, and the Favorites are all part of the series of subgenre ones that I've already mentioned that I need to get caught up on. So those ones are all there. Rebel Witch, I've already mentioned this one at least twice now, I'm pretty sure, where I read Crimson Moth and I was like, how are they going to fix that? So we're going to find out how they're going to fix it. And the Night Prince, I just finished Wolf King. So, like, literally, like, a couple of days ago. So I am excited, and I want to read the next one in Night Prince, or the next one in the series, which is Night Prince. And Great Big Beautiful Life is one that I have at least sort of heard of. It has definitely shown up on a couple of TBR. It's on my TBR, but I don't always, like I said, love contemporary romance. It's not my absolute favorite. I do usually enjoy them, but they're not like ones that I like love typically, unless they're a very specific like trope that I like, or even like a subgenre that I really enjoy. But contemporary is just kind of one where they're nice. They're not my absolute favorites though, so I don't usually get to them as often. So this will add a contemporary romance into my list. And then I'll have a dark romance put in there for Caught Up, because I read the first one earlier this year and enjoyed it. So I will read the next one. All right. So you can figure out when I was born based on this book, but a top 10 book from year of my birth, I ended up choosing Queen of the Dam by Anne Rice. I've never read it. I do not know why I haven't read it, because I love paranormal things. And there was definitely a time, like in high school, where I was like, read all the vampire stuff, and I would go to the bookstore and spend a good chunk of the monies that I would bring in that didn't go towards paying for my car insurance and etc. on books. And this was always there. I remember seeing it, but I think that it was just I never got around to it, or it was just really, really like a thick tome, and they usually were more expensive because I think this one was usually in like the hardback area, and I was trying to spend little amounts of money and not like big amounts of money. And hardback books were expensive unless they were in the like that clearance bin, which I did buy several clearance bin books. This, oh boy, I was like, how did this no one mentioned this book was gonna, yeah. Spice. Did not know that I came across Accidental Spice. And it is a memory in my brain, man. It's like, oh, okay then. Grew up very sheltered. Then I got 3 books in 24 hours. This should be really easy to do, except for the fact that I can't use any of the books I've already mentioned or I'm going to mention. So this may be something that I either do at the very end once I've already read all the things, or just like pick 3 books and read them on a random Saturday when I have nothing else going on. Or maybe if I'm traveling at some point. I don't know. We're not doing a ton of traveling right now with my job, but there's always the possibility I'll need to travel to Texas at least once to go to the doctor. So that's usually a good half day of travel at least. So, but I usually also travel really early in the morning when I go to Texas. So I will be hard. But anyway, I will figure it out. At some point, I'll have a 24-hour period where I will knock out 3 books. Will they probably be the most hefty of books? Probably not. I'll probably choose, 300-ish page books rather than like 500 pages books. But I do think they all had to be over a certain length anyway. Like they couldn't all be like 100-page books, like novellas, short story type situations. So I'll have to go back and look and see what the requirements on that one were. But yeah. And then a recipe in a book. This one may switch out, but I went looking. I can't have gluten, and I don't really want to make something I can't eat. And recipes aren't always easily adaptable when it comes to gluten-free. They're just, unless I've made it and can play around with it, I'm not the best gluten-free adapter or gluten-free baker. Either one. I cook well, but I'm not the best baker. So I was like, the long quiche goodbye. Quiche is something that it's like you can use puff pastry, and there's definitely gluten-free pastry at the grocery store. So I could potentially do that, or I could just make a gluten-free pastry that I find on the internet elsewhere and sort of substitute that in. But I didn't feel like it would be sort of breaking the rules because the quiche is that pastry plus everything else too. So it's not something that it's like you're making bread. Well, now you're making a gluten-free bread, or I get it, where it's like a completely different item because you're gonna have like, instead of 5 ingredients, now you're gonna have like 30 ingredients. It's not quite that ridiculous, but it is in some cases rather extensive. Speaking of, if you are also gluten-free, let me know any amazing recipes you have, because I'm always looking for great recipes, or recipes that are just, even if they're niche recipes, you're like, this is only really good to make in the fall, or you're probably only going to make this when you go to a potluck. I don't care. I have things. I will try things. Right now I do a lot of basic stuff. So like fajitas, fajita bowls, pulled porks, pot roasts, pastas, like pasta casseroles. all kinds of things like that. But we also do like fancy days. We had a tea party this last year, and 75 to 80% of the items that I made were gluten-free, and we were very careful to do the gluten-free stuff first. But there were a couple of things that we made for the guests that were on a separate platter that were not gluten-free because I've not figured out how to make them gluten-free. So, and I thought that they were necessary. Like my scones, my gluten-free scones did not come out well, so I need a different recipe for that. Anyway, off topic now. But yeah, so we didn't have a gluten-free scone. We had a regular scone. Because you can't have a tea party without scones. You just can't. All right? Anywho's, moving back along. Let me know if you know any good recipes. Genre challenge. I only did half of this because I read a sci-fi, a thriller, a romance every single month, or at least almost every month. And historicals, I read several every year anyway. But the other ones, I was like, technically, I don't read. Well, I probably could have left off fantasy too, because I do read a fantasy every month. But this one will be available soon, and I definitely am going to read it. So I went ahead and popped it on there. But I don't necessarily read a nonfiction, literary, or horror every month because I'm not in any like clubs that for those particular genres. So I went ahead and picked out some for those. Handmaid's Tale will finally, hopefully, be available in another like 20 weeks. 20 more weeks. So went ahead and put that on there. The Body Keeps a Score. I actually have a written copy. My psychiatrist told me I should read it a couple of years ago, and I read about, I don't know, half of it, maybe, no, a third of it on a plane, and then I just never finished it. So I will need to start it over, and I never finished it, so sort of accidental DNF. I may do the audio and written at the same time kind of situation. I haven't decided, just that may keep my brain more engaged. And I will. It was also really, really a meaty book, and it was something that there's a reason I was supposed to read it, right? So that one will be probably one that I don't do all at once. It'll probably be over a little while, but I get through it all. Play Nice showed up on a couple of things during October. Or right before October and into October. People were talking about they were going to read this book, and it looked really interesting, but I never saw anybody like follow up saying if it was amazing or not. So I put it on there. I may change it out if I hear from people that it's not amazing, or if something else comes along that'll fit great into that little spot, I may switch it out and read it later in the year. But for now, that's what I'm going to be doing for this one. And then the crowdfunded book. Again, I went for something that was crowdfunded during the time period, or at least like it was available in 2024 to read, 2024, 2025. And I found it was sort of difficult to find crowdfunded books. Like when I clicked on like links for like, maybe it's because maybe my app wasn't working right. I don't know. I found it difficult to find anything that was actively available to crowdfund now that was going to be able to be read in the first half of next year. So if you know of ones that would be a better option, let me know. But for now, I ended up choosing Dungeon Crawler Carl because that's one that was crowdfunded and that I've seen several people suggest as a book to read. And so I put it on a book that I want to read, and then if I really like it, I've already mentioned it to my husband as something that I think he would probably enjoy too, just based on the premise. We played Dungeons and Dragons together, so it should be sort of fun, hopefully, to read that together, or at least read it and discuss it at the end. So we don't always read together, but I know. Why did I write genre challenge at the top? I must have forgotten to fix this. Sorry, this should be the color challenge. I did not put anything here at all. This will be really easy. I don't foresee this being something that I need to worry about and plan for at all. It'll just naturally fill in. So I didn't even look at it. Just because there are so many. I think I only had to really look at 2 at all last year. And that was mostly just so that I could get them fit. Like if I looked at the entire 12 months, I would have definitely found one. But I wanted to try to fit it in during that month. So classic. So I decided to read the next one in Alice in Wonderland. I read the Alice's Adventures in Wonderland this year. And so the next one is Through the Looking Glass, which I'm not sure if it's Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There is the whole name, or if Through the Looking Glass is one and What Alice Found There is the third one. I was having trouble discerning that. But either way, I'm going to finish them both next year. And then Gregor Maguire wrote a book called After Alice, which I thought was really interesting sounding. It's like a friend of Alice comes looking for her the day that she goes down the rabbit hole and just misses her, but ends up falling down the hole after her. And so she's like going through the same places that Alex were going right after Alice, and all of the things that she comes across and the chaos that she stumbles into, etc., because of that while she's looking for Alice in Wonderland. I'm like, that's a fun premise. I'll read that. That sounds fun. Protagonist named as friends. This was supposed to be friends and just people in your general sphere. So the next Stephanie Plum book on my list is Sizzling 16. So I chose Stephanie. I know several Stephanies. And then I only know, I think, one J. I can only think of one off the top of my head. But there is a J for Great Gatsby, and Great Gatsby is on my list of classics and books from a school reading list that I may not have gotten to, and I had not gotten to that one. So I don't know if I will enjoy The Great Gatsby, because I've heard mixed reviews on it, but I need to read it to expand my horizons. So I'm going to read that one, and J. And then Unquiet Bones is on my list for Saturday book club, and that has Jane, and I do indeed know a Jane, so went with that. Every season, these ones are definitely ones that can switch out, but since I was doing this particular video, I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and pick one for every season, and then if something else comes up, I can sub them in. But these are all ones that are either on my list of books that I want to read, or are on my list of like need to read elsewhere. I guess that makes sense. So I chose Club Dead, which according to the internet mostly takes place in the summer. Vampire Academy, which again according to the internet mostly takes place in the fall. And then Across Twilight was supposedly a little bit of fall, but mostly winter. And then Twilight is most of the year, but the internet says it is majoritively spring. So I don't know if I believe the internet, but I know that this is supposed to be like over the course of the school year, right? Which would be pretty much the whole year. So, but the internet says it's spring, or mostly spring. So if you disagree, let me know. Or if you have a better option for any of these seasons, let me know. For now, though, these are where I'm going to start. And nothing here is set in stone for any of these. But yeah, that's my plan for HRCYED 1.0 at the moment. We will see as we go through the next couple of months, because I won't be starting this until January. I wanted to make sure, there was plenty of time for recommendations to come in and etc. Before I started. Plus, I wanted to try to finish up HRCYED 2.0 in its entirety before I jumped right in. And yeah, so I will chat with you guys next time. Bye!